Realty, and I'm going to bring him into the room right now. We'll see if this works. Technology. Yes.
Hey, Jason, welcome. Hey. 1 million agents in the next 10 years. We got some work to do, I think.
You're looking at the 4 horsemen. You are looking at the 4 horsemen, Jason.
I know it. 4 of my great friends. It's good to see you guys. Everybody's looking healthy.
Glad you're here, Jason. Thanks. So for those that don't know you, you are now the residing CEO for eXp Realty. You left eXp World Holdings to come back to eXp, which everyone was very excited about, and leading the charge of this massive growth that's been happening over the last few months. But there's also been a little bit of uncertainty and change in the air the last few weeks. I think in everyone's business, and I know that you have just, I mean, I can't imagine what your days have been like, but my first question is, how is this impending situation going to change our industry?
Well, I think, up until now, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I've enjoyed watching these. I've caught most of the last 3, and I think it's great that you're doing this. But I think before COVID, the next tipping point was going to be the election, right? And there was either going to be a new leader that we were going to have to prepare for, there were going to be somebody potentially who was going to be introducing programs that were going to be, very expensive and probably inevitably result in tax hikes that were going to slow the market down. So I think, 14 years into a 10-year cycle, there was a shift coming. The question for me is the election still going to have an impact, or has COVID really sort of established itself as the key determinant in what real estate looks like going forward? But I think on the industry side and for agents, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about the transaction getting simpler. And I think oftentimes people are referring to how do you have one-stop shopping? How do you make it as seamless and as painless and as enjoyable for the consumer to get all the things that they need that are associated with the transaction? I think now it becomes even simpler, and not just the closing, not just obtaining financing, not just obtaining title, but also, doing virtual tours. I mean, our tour technology, I've been following the news, and I know there are a lot of companies that are embarking on this now. We've been doing this now for a while. Like, we introduced our eXp 360 tours, I think it was last August, maybe, and we're seeing widespread adoption of it. It's just like seeing a home. I mean, it is just like visiting the home in person, except you don't have to leave your house. And your agent can be there. They can give you a guided tour at the same time that you're walking through the property. Really powerful stuff. And we've heard great stories about agents that are using tools like that. And I think both within and outside of eXp, as we go forward, when this is all said and done, the new normal, I think, inevitably includes people using tools like that to make things easier and more efficient.
I love it. Hey, Jason, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What number were you? Weren't you like agent number 47 at eXp back 10 years ago, a decade ago?
Well, I think my gross number, because we keep gross numbers, I think it was number 60. If I go into enterprise today, they put me down as number 2. We'll say 30.
And now you're the CEO of our company. You've been here since the beginning. I bet you back then you said, someday we'll have 30,000 agents. And it sounded as crazy as me saying 1 million. Well, but it's coming, baby.
You guys heard the story, I'm sure, that in 2013, Glenn and I were in a meeting, and we declared with the person we were meeting with that we were going to be at 10,000 agents by 2020. And, the person we were with is a serious individual and knows the industry probably better than anybody. And, he was very polite about it, but I think probably had great doubts about our ability to do that, because he knew how we were operating. He knew we had avatars. But, lo and behold, today we are in 2020, early 2020, and we're up around 28,000. So I've always thought, Brent, from day one, that when things make a lot of sense, like so much sense that, like you guys say, you see it, you can't unsee it. I mean, the difference is just that great in terms of what you can do, what the opportunity is, the way you can now protect yourself and diversify your income and your life. It's just so strong because of the way in which we've used technology to build community. I always thought it was going to make sense. And the other key ingredient to that is making sure you're working with people that you can trust, who are ethical, and who have the agent's best interests in mind, and that's Glenn Safert. There's no better advocate for agent interest than Glenn anywhere on the planet. I don't care what anybody says. And one of the things I really got out of last week's show that you guys did was when he said, I don't ever want to be in conflict with my agents in terms of a conflict of interest. And I think that's really powerful. I think everybody watching this ought to understand that and know that that's a big difference maker.
Hey, Jason, I got a question for you, because I'm hopping in here, Scott, because Just 5 years ago, I want people to learn this in context. This is my 5-year anniversary this month. It'll be at the end of this month, Jason. And I only met 2 people before I joined eXp, Jason Gesing and Glenn Sanford. I didn't get to meet Brent. I didn't get to go watch the video. I didn't get to watch, go to anything. So I've always thought this, and literally 5 years ago, we had less than 400 agents. And when Jason and Glenn and I sat down and kind of did our just personal goals, Jason and Glenn, we'd love to have 10,000 agents at the end of 2020. That was even 5 years ago, Jason. I want them to understand how excited we are. We call Jason something special because seriously, Glenn and Jason are the reason I'm here. I got to tell you the story. Before they announced me 5 years ago, I was having dinner with other people. I had just met these other people. And I said, you don't understand. I did not join this company because of the model. And everybody just gasped. What are you talking about? I said, I joined this company because of Jason Gesing and Glenn Sanford.
Wow.
And guys, people follow people. They don't follow models, they follow people. When I talked to Rob Flick, he said, Gene, I believe you. Scott Lewis talks to Rob Flick, I believe you, right? Brent Gove talks to Sheila Fazeron, I believe you. We can talk about models all day long, but this company is special because of Jason Gesing and Glenn Sanford. And I just want to give you your dues, Jason, because we friendly call him the reason. It's real simple. He's the reason a lot of us came here in the beginning when there were less than 500 people. Thank you, Jason, for coming on with us today.
Well, thanks, Gene. I won't forget the dinner, April 22nd, 2015, about 5:46 Arizona time. And I don't think I've ever received a greater compliment. And that whole process, I was on with Elizabeth Riley and Renee Funk, and I was telling the story about the dinner that preceded the first time I met you late in 2014. That whole process of getting to know you and explaining to you what we were doing and answering your questions, and gosh, you had a lot of questions. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think it was a real tipping point in our ability to really reach people and let them understand the difference we're making.
Well, I think I speak for a lot of people. We're all grateful for that conversation and that happened. And digging a little bit deeper here, Jason, because you were talking about a little bit, you kind of scratched the surface of why eXp is different. But if agents are watching this and they're looking at this going, well, why is it different? Why is eXp? And I've always said winter is coming, and we're built for this. We are built for this time. Can you give us your perspective on why we were built for this?
And they say, what is it? Those who prepare in winter reap the harvest of spring, right? And I think, from the beginning, I think you have to look back to why we launched and when we launched and why Glenn did this. Back in 2009, he basically told his staff to go home because of the global financial crisis, and that there was a new way to work, new way to build community, new way to provide broker support, to teach classes, to collaborate. And he was really onto something. But he did that because revenues were down, transactions were down, sellers couldn't sell, buyers couldn't get financing. There were all sorts of problems, but those expenses of being an owner didn't go away. So, the monthly lease, the CAM charges, the phone systems, all of those different things, the magazine subscriptions on the furniture. So he knew he had to change the way in which he approached the business. And, when the market improved, he could have very easily gone back to opening up offices here and there, but we've stayed this way ever since. And I can tell you, back in the days that Gene refers to, 2015 and before, even back then, those who could listen and actually understand what it was that we were doing, and they came in and they joined, you can't escape the fact that we're approaching the business so differently, operating in the way that we do. And it was a really galvanizing force, and I think it remains one today. It's a difficult thing to describe, but really at the end of the day, we're built for this because we don't have staffing redundancies, we don't have brick and mortar, we don't have fixed costs, everything's variable, and yet we're still able to do the things that agents really need and really want. Everybody talks about how agents aren't going into the office anymore, or weren't even before COVID. Now they're not, but that's been a trend for a while, that the productive agents are out in the field generating business. And, yet, those offices are there, and there's value in that experience. It's not that the agent doesn't like going into the office. They love seeing people. Agents are people. They want to be around people. They want to bounce ideas off of people. They want to learn what's going to make them better. But as the business has moved away from calls coming in on the phone from consumers, well, now you got to go out and you got to find them in new ways, and it's not in the office, that value started to dissipate. And so agents weren't finding that value to begin with. And I think what's really hard to describe, but you can experience almost instantly the moment you're with us or you're a guest in our world, is that we've been able to restore that value, and we've been able to put it back in place, and we've been able to say, okay, now you can have all of the training, all of the education, all of the mentorship, all of the broker support. You can reach your broker whenever you need to reach your broker if you have a question. And if that broker's busy, we've got a whole infrastructure behind it, so you're never going to be left hanging. We can provide all of that. And I think this is really important now, the socialization, the water cooler chat, the birthday parties, the baby showers, the happy hours. And we provide all of that. So we've really restored the value, except we've taken away the geographic barriers. And so now you can be sitting across a table and learning what somebody does to make them tops in their market, even if they're 3,000 miles away. And I think that's a really powerful thing. But from a cost standpoint, you figure we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 different MLSs around the country, just in the United States today. And you can think about any other way that you might approach the business. I mean, historically, when we think about what real estate looks like in a traditional sense, we would have to have 600 locations at least. We would have to have at least 600 people that were providing support on transactions. We'd have to have at least 600 people who are onboarding, at least 600 people who are answering phones. You get the idea. Tech support. I mean, we provide tech support around the clock, and it's on demand, and it's interactive and engaging. You're kept up to speed as to exactly what's happening. But we'd have to do that 600 times if we wanted to operate in any other way. And we're able to do it with fewer than 600 staff in the entire company right now, covering all of those markets. And in every single instance, the experience is a concierge experience. It is personal, it is interpersonal, it is engaging. Our staff know the agents, they know about their business, and I think that's key. But you take away those costs, you take away those redundancies, you take away the brick and mortar, and now all of a sudden, if you can really build that community like we have, all of a sudden now you've got something that really others can't do, and you can change the model, and you can pay agents more, and you can approach the business in a way where every single decision you make, and Gene knows this, every single decision that we make we ask ourselves, how is this going to benefit the agents? And the goal is always to make the model richer, to make the opportunity greater, and I think it's possible because we're different. And so when something like this comes up, we sort of felt for many years now that when the market turned again, as much as we don't want to see it, that we were going to be able to do something this time that couldn't be done back in 2008, 2009, and that is to keep brokerage owners in particular in the business, to keep good people in the business who've been in it for years or decades, and they couldn't stay in it last time because the expenses were so high and the income was down. The thing they loved to do, serve consumers, they had to stop, and the industry suffered. And the industry will suffer again if good people have to get out of the business. And we're in a position to allow brokerage owners in particular to stay in the business. And really, to get through this and to really do well going forward, you need to increase the size of your opportunity. And eXp allows the brokerage owner to do that by bringing people in, leveraging their credibility and reputation in any of the markets that we're in all over the globe, and realizing real revenue from it, but without having to make the investments up front, take the risk, and incur the liabilities. And that's been true from day one. It's true today. It's something we're seeing, yield real results. I mean, you guys, I think Brent, you talked about some of the brokerages that you're speaking with. I've got some conversations with firms that are, close to 1,000 agents, and the value proposition is there. But going back to Glenn's advocacy for agents, we put every single agent in the exact same position as that brokerage owner, and I think that's a really powerful thing. So I don't know if I answered your question.
That's awesome. I loved it, and so that kind of takes me to the next point, because I remember 4 years ago, especially, and even 3 years ago, we kept hearing over and over and over from our competitors that the model wasn't sustainable and that eXp wouldn't be able to hold up. And now, if you look at it 4 years later, all of a sudden, it's like the whole thing's been flipped upside down. And which model wasn't sustainable, because a lot of the models out there right now, God forbid, I can't imagine still having a franchise and being a broker owner right now and going through this and thinking about all of that overhead and what I'm going to do with that, how I'm going to manage that. Yet eXp has we haven't skipped a beat. eXp is still running like a well-oiled machine. However, you did have to make some pretty difficult decisions this last week with staff and a 15% reduction in our overall spend. But we're agile, and it's easy. I hate to say easy when we're talking about people, because that's never easy, right? Those conversations are very difficult. They're human lives, and it's tough. But as far as the transition and being agile, what makes eXp so much different in that regard? And tell us about the week.
Yeah, so first of all, let me just touch on the sustainability thing. I've gotten that question, heard that comment many times. I've seen organized talking points around it that others have put together to try and levy that against us. Anybody's welcome to go to expworldholdings.com and look at our financials. Everything is transparent about this company. You know exactly where we're spending money. And you can see that we achieved positive earnings for the first time in the fourth quarter of last year, and that's the first time since migrating to NASDAQ. You can see that in our preliminary results released just this week, we've got agents up 59% year over year. Transaction side, 73%. Volumes up 93% year over year. So the sustainability argument for me is one I've never really quite understood it, and even when I've asked people about it, I haven't really gotten a very good answer as to why they feel that way. But if any model is sustainable, I believe it's this one. And I think if there's any model that really is prepared to not just survive this, but thrive and grow in it, it's this one. We're starting to see that already. Very, very challenging week. I mean, I think, Gene, I think part of the reason why you joined us is because we're people, and we love people. And, it's no matter what, it is just a hard thing to do. And the decisions that have to be weighed and made are decisions you don't really want to have to make, but at some point something's going to happen that's going to change the dynamic. And I think it was Eugene who said to me in a call a couple of weeks ago that when the virus was in China at its peak, I mean there was an extended period of time where transaction, real estate activity, volume, sales went down 100%, right? Absolutely zero. So you can have a model that has $10 in expenses, you're still going to have more expenses than you have income. If activity declines. So you have to be, I think for us, the difference is we're not reacting. We're being proactive based on what we see and where we think the market's going to be. Now, the flip side is that on the Virbela side, we've had a huge uptick in interest. We've got universities, we've got businesses, we've got real estate teams, we've got real estate brokerages that have team room suites in Virbela. And so, you start thinking about how do you diversify, how do you start to think about where the opportunity is when the market turns. I don't think we ever anticipated this as the cause, but now you're in a situation where people really need us, and the environment provides that. We've been able to shift a good number of employees over to Virbela. So we were able to manage to provide roles, and people are making a positive impact immediately over on the Virbela side who were previously with eXp. And then other folks, we hope there's an opportunity at some point, and we know there will be. I mean, business will come back, but once you're a member of eXp staff, you're a member of the family forever. And so one of the things that Glenn did, and I don't know that that's out there yet, we actually, his idea was to create a room on the open campus where affected people can come in. We can give them some support as they try to find new opportunities. We can answer questions. But more importantly, we can give them a place just to come in and socialize. Because for a lot of people right now, there is no socialization. I mean, you're not talking to anybody. You're banging your head against the wall. It's you and the dog. And people need, in this time, they need to be around other people. They have to be. I do, at least. And like never before, the world serves that purpose here. I mean, last night, I think they had a trivia game on the beach in Virbela. I know that last week they had a happy hour. I've been on that campus and watching fireworks at some point in the last 6 weeks. I mean, it all sounds silly if you've not been there. If you've not been there, you might have a hard time envisioning it. But once you're there and you see that we had a soccer tournament last week, and every hour on the hour we had different games between states, between provinces, between countries. And on Friday, Alberta beat Kansas in the final. To be able to do that sort of thing, you've got to be able to get your mind off of this stuff. And I said to Christina last night, one of the amazing things is you sometimes don't quite grasp during the course of the day just how much is impacted by this. by this virus out in the world. How many, the broad range of ways in which just about everything is impacted. And I think for us, I mean, we've had to respond because the market has changed and agents' needs are changing, and we're going to make sure that we stay ahead of that curve. But for us, the day-to-day business of going into work and working through problems and meeting with people and supporting people, it hasn't changed at all. Yesterday, I was in meetings for 11 hours straight. And, I don't look at the news. I don't look at the news during the day. I'll catch up at the end of the day. But people need a place to go. They need a place to socialize. They need to continue just to be able to have an outlet to get things off their chest. And the world has served as a respite in a time of isolation.
Hey, Jason, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'll hop in there, Scott, real quick. This is like 2008 in one respect. It's a world virus, right? It's world. I mean, it affects 190 countries, right? Give us a little insight as to where you think we're going to go. Just this week, I had 2 Zoom calls from 2 different countries. One of them, 1,300 agents. Another one, 280 agents. They're calling us now. These are different countries. Going, hey, help me. I now understand. I don't need all this bricks and mortar. I'm caught. Okay, I've been in existence for 40 years, but now's the time to look at a new model. Like, look at Netflix, not Blockbuster. Give us a feeling of where you see we're going to go in the next few years.
Yeah, I think, pre-COVID, the plan was to, of course, we're in Australia, we're in the United Kingdom, we're in Canada, most of Canada. And the plan this year was to go into not fewer than 2 countries. While this is happening, we've sort of put things on pause, but at the same time that you're receiving those calls, we're getting them too, Gene. And, we're continuing to listen. We're continuing to see where the opportunities might be. And, you never know. We could this year end up in more places. We could end up in 0, in terms of markets. But I think, over the next couple of years, I mean, we should be in 10, 20 countries. And I think when you start talking about what that means to agents, it's not just the owner there that gets out from under the brick and mortar. It's the agent who doesn't have access to other, colleagues or partners or fellow shareholders, and who can bounce ideas off of agents in the United States to learn what makes them successful there. I mean, can you imagine if you had instant access to be able to sit across from somebody that was 3,000 miles away in a different time zone who practices real estate in a completely different way than is done in the United States? But if you could go in and you can get that information just by plugging into our Excel series or just by plugging into our classes, I mean, what a difference that would make, both for everybody in the market. And so at some point soon, we're going to have people. We've got Quebec open now, so we've got some French being spoken. We've got Australia and UK, but it won't be long before we have people, just speaking a multitude of languages, and they'll have different religious backgrounds. They'll come from different places, completely different experiences, but they'll all come to the same place. They'll come to the world, and they'll lend their support to each other, their share with each other, because we're all united as fellow owners in the same enterprise. And I think that's a really powerful story.
Jason, we all know when you say they come into the world what that means. All the eXp people, we understand. There's people on this that are not with eXp that go, what does he mean come into the world? I'm already in the world. What do you mean say, come into the world?
Yeah. By the way, Rob, I want to say, in the first show and a little bit in the second, I really appreciated your comments about people keeping safe. And there was a lot of debate at the time about whether this was a real thing or not. And I just admired your advice. I'm glad you're doing the push-ups. I found sanity begins with exercise in the morning, and you wouldn't know looking at me, but that's one of the things I've been trying to do too. So in the world, for people who want to try it out, they can. They don't, and nobody's going to try and sell them on anything. If you want, you can go to virbela.com, VIRBELA.com. And you can download our open campus, and you can go in and you can walk around and you can say hi to some people. You can look at the directory. If you go straight in past the information desk and walk back into the information center, you can go and there's a series of videos that will begin to play as you walk into each separate sound region. You'll see the directory of companies that have team suites today. And you'll really begin to understand what it's like to sit in an auditorium with 800 people on a Friday morning like we did yesterday, and have people chatting with each other, opening their microphone up and in real time asking questions, dancing a little bit, celebrating the career of somebody who's been with us for a very long time, all of those things. So team rooms and Virbela generally. So when I say the world, I mean eXp World, which is powered by Virbela. eXp World Holdings owns Virbela. It is, in my opinion, the single best platform online for business. We've proven that, and I think if you look 3 or 4 years ahead, I think service industries everywhere, service businesses everywhere are going to be powered by Virbela, because at the end of the day, there really are very few business challenges that the Virbela doesn't solve. So what do I mean by that? You know, you're in a market and you've got a, you know, I remember, in fact, I may have a common acquaintance here, but the, you know, financial services firm with the recurring revenue model with tens of thousands of customers, they could double it tomorrow if they could only find enough good bookkeepers. But because they're geographically tied, you know, to the Southwest, you know, they can't find them. But, you know, if you all of a sudden, if you sort of change your perspective on what the office looks like and how you build community, you can go and find that talent. Even though there's a labor shortage in your local area, you can go to Oklahoma City, you can go up to Maine, you can find good people that you need everywhere. In terms of, you know, safety, obviously, I mean, we don't have to disinfect the world. It's safe, it's clean. And that's been really, really comforting for our staff, and I think for those of us who are working with them, knowing that they're working in a safe place. People, I mean, just about any business challenge, I really think it solves. It really allows you to maintain some control of the business during this time, keep your culture going, keep the collaboration going. And so we've been operating that way, Rob, ever since, ever since 2010 in some form or fashion. So if you walk into the world in eXp world today, first of all, you can go and you can sit in on one of those 141 hours of classes. I think Brent said it was last week. I mean, Jay Kinder, I think this week coming up, we got Tim and Julie Harris. I can tell you, when I wanted to know where in the cycle we were last fall, I went to timandjulieharris.com and I listened to their podcast on it. There's nobody better. And they're going to come in and they're going to tell you what to do in this market. You know, Jeff Seabach, I think, is on this week as well, one of the top teams in all of Arizona. Tarek El Moussa just joined us from Flipper Flop. I mean, here's somebody who's got a show that's, you know, got distribution across the globe, but as far as into Japan. He sees the opportunity, and he sees the opportunity to help other agents. He's with us. Than Merrill, I don't know if you guys know Than, but, you know, Fortune Builders. There's another, you know, organization, very, very successful. Than's an unbelievable human being, incredibly bright, but he's got tens of thousands of people that are following him and learning from him who are in the business. He's with us. I think they did 5,000 live events last year. They have a team room suite, and I know he doesn't mind me saying that. So you know, we've got people that are going to be doing events in Virbela. I know I'm rambling, Rob, but when I say the world, I mean I've got a likeness that looks just like me in the world, just as you all do, and I can walk in there. And I can go to a class, I can meet with staff, we can have our board meetings in there like we are now, right, Gene? I mean, we're having board of directors meetings in world. Everybody's thousands or hundreds of miles apart, and we're able to sit next to each other. We have our broker meetings in world. So if you want to get up to speed, if you're looking for where the status of a payment is, you can walk in and get an instant answer from our transaction and finance team. Any issue you have, tech support, you just walk in and get what you need. If you want to go into a class, do that. If you want to reserve a private room and you want to meet with somebody, do that. Mitch Riback out of Orlando last 2 weeks ago had 60 people into one of the rooms. He just reserved one of the rooms on campus. And those people were a mix. It was probably 50% eXp people and 50% people from other companies. And he wasn't trying to sell them anything. He wasn't trying to recruit them. I know that's a notion that likes to be spread all the time. He just wanted them to come in and try and share what he knew about how we dealt with the down market in the last downturn. And that we've really opened the campus up in that way. And then there's some fun things too. There is the soccer field. There's speedboats. There's a pirate ship. I can do things in the world I can't do in real life. I can dance. I can do backflips. Yeah, it's great. I'm superhuman. So
I think the cool part, Jason, is for everyone watching. Picture going onto any college, university campus in America. When you land there at the welcome area and you start walking, it feels like any university campus in America. And there's auditoriums and classrooms and buildings and interesting things all over. Very cool. Go check it out. Yeah,
absolutely. How about the fact that most companies they're not going to have their conventions. They're not going to have their national get-togethers. We're still going to have ours. It's going to be in the eXp world. We're still going to have a convention. I mean,
we are. Yep. And it's going to be great. Yeah. So sorry, Scott. I know we're running short on time, so I'm excited to talk about it.
I want to ask you one more question because
go ahead.
Kind of danced around this because we've talked about Virbela, we've talked about the eXp world, we've talked about a little bit about why agents should come here. We've talked about what Brent did a great job of what an agent should be doing right now today to get business mindset with Rob and Gene. What does it mean to be a shareholder at eXp Realty?
Well, Gene knows. I mean, we had 400 agents back in 2014, or fewer than 400. You know, we had revenue share since 2009. Right? We've had an 80-20 split and a cap of 16,000 since 2009. Since 2009, our fees, when you add it up, quantitatively, they haven't changed. All of those things have been there. But in 2013, we became a public company by way of a reverse merger. And we did that because we wanted the agents and the brokers shareholders. So, you know, any brokerage owner out there right now in distress, or who thinks they're going to experience distress in the next 30, 60, 90 days, you know, they're starting to realize, well, can I sell my company? And at the end of the day, you can have the nicest office, you can have a great CRM, your logo could be beautiful, but if you don't have agents, you have nothing. And so that was the discussion that really predicated the reverse merger in 2013. Glenn wanted to make sure that everybody who was an agent at eXp, because they were the chief asset, that they were going to be shareholders of the company, frankly, whether they liked it or not, just by closing their first transaction of the year, capping, bringing other people in. Of course, as a non-franchise company, which is one of the things, Scott, that I think allows us to pivot pretty quickly, because, you know, we don't have to mobilize, you know, hundreds of different offices, each with their own leadership and their own ability to make decisions. You know, we're able to mobilize quickly, but we don't have a royalty not being a franchise. And so we also allow our agents to receive 5% of their commission in the form of company stock at a 10% discount to the market. So, but what it means culturally is all of a sudden now people want to see each other succeed. And you hear over and over again, both in internal channels and otherwise, people love collaborating and they're blown away by the fact that everybody wants to help them. And agent ownership absolutely fuels that. It completely changes, transforms, turns upside down the relationship between the agent and the brokerage. You know, times like right now, we're listening to our agents. Our agents are telling us what we need to do. We need to take care of them. They need to know that we love them, and we turn to them for advice. But agent ownership is this idea that if we all have the same interest in the outcome, we're going to be a lot more committed to the effort. We're going to have a lot more fun doing it. So it is, to me, the single most powerful element of the model. But you can't have it without having a place for those people to meet and work together and collaborate, and the world serves that purpose.
That's very cool. Hey, Scott, I got to share this. Last night, my wife was doing something on her computer. I go, hey, honey, pull up the back office of the eXp. Let's check on revenue share. And by the way, it's the largest one I've ever gotten. That number's more than I used to net in a year and a month, and we get it every month. It's incredible. But the cool thing is, I go, have you ever seen our stock page? She goes, no, where's that? I go, click on this tab. And then there's all these other tabs. You know, there's a 7,000 shares. Here's 5,000 shares. Here's 30,000 shares. Here's 10,000 shares. And I just pulled it up, of course. eXp is trading at $8.25 a share right now, doing very well. And it's exciting. I mean, after 20 years of a big goose egg, I like having the stock awards of eXp. So thank you, Jason. Thank you, Glenn Sanford. I love being a shareholder in my company. And all of you watching, the opportunity is there for you. You're on the front end of a movement. It's a tsunami, and the shift in that ocean floor, that little, and all of a sudden here the swell comes, baby. Look out, world. Here comes eXp. It's for you. Keep learning about the model. It's awesome. TheModelExplained.com. Watch that. Call the person who had you watch this. Don't call this. Call them and learn more.
Can I say one other thing? I just got to give out a link as well. You know, Dave Knorr was instrumental in this. Our marketing team worked hard. But come find out about the people who are joining. Yeah, every week we've got different content on a site called life.exprealty.com. Life.exprealty.com. Go there. You can understand why Tarek made the move over. You can understand why brokerage owners are making the move over. You can understand what people are doing within their communities, what's important to them from a service standpoint. You can hear a lot of interesting things, and you'll understand sort of the fabric of the company and why it is that we're doing what we're doing. Keep in mind, we're number one independent brokerage according to Real Trends now. According to many, fastest growing real estate brokerage in the history of the industry in North America. We've never once taken out an ad on a television. We've never once run a billboard. We're not building houses at the All-Star game. This is all powered by the agents. And the reason the agents are powering it is because they recognize it's fundamentally different and it offers opportunities that nobody else can.
I love it. Thank you, Jason. You know, we could sit here and talk all day. I mean, you're just a wealth of knowledge about the company. I can't wait till you write a book about eXp. I mean, it's just, there's so much information. I know people, I learned a lot today, and I know a lot of others are sitting there going, man, I need to tune in to this guy more often. There's one thing though that I think that was a big deal to me, and I'm not sure we talked on it, but I want to make sure, as a shareholder, yes, I get stock so many different ways, but we talked about this Rebella thing. It is exploding. We get stock in Rebella, right? I mean, if
you get stock in World Holdings, right? And World Holdings owns
right?
World Holdings owns Rebella. World Holdings owns Realty. It has an interest, obviously, and so do our agents in our affiliated services programs, title, escrow. As the ecosystem continues to build, there are things that we can provide to our agents, and we'll have bulk purchasing power. And these are things that we're not trying to sell to our agents. Gene knows that. We don't try to mark things up and make money in that way. But our agents are going to need things. We're going to have a lot of people who will need them, and we think we can provide them on a pretty good basis. And healthcare is a great example of that, right? This is not the healthcare option that's available at Realty. This is not the healthcare option that's available at other companies. This isn't just another step along the way to the marketplace. This is real health insurance. It covers pre-existing conditions. And I think now about all these people that are losing their job, 30% unemployment, whatever sector they're in, a lot of agents are married to people like that, or they're living with people like that, and they've been relying upon the healthcare benefits from that job. And now all of a sudden, if that disappears, you can come over to eXp, and that life circumstance will allow you to enroll in our healthcare program. Go to life.exprealty.com, and you'll probably find a couple of stories about people who are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for better coverage than what they were paying before. So anyway, sorry to throw that in.
Better and better and better. I'm excited to be a part of it. And I know my co-hosts, Gene Frederick, Brent Gove, and Rob Flick, are excited to see you next week. Here every week just tune in to Built for This Live. You do not want to miss our guest next week. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to be unbelievable. We're here every single week. Thanks again, Jason, for your time. As always, we appreciate everything that you're doing. We know that this is crazy times and that your schedule is nuts. So thanks again, Rob, Brent, Gene. Until next week, stay safe, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Hi, Jason.